what's going on, guys? This is Miss, and today I'm actually going to be reviewing the Numeron package, so specifically ZEXAL, because I want to say that's probably the most powerful thing that you can do with Numeron cards, and people have started to kind of drop this engine recently. So are they making like an incorrect decision, or are they making the right decision? That's what I'm going to try to figure out today, so I'm going to cover up the pros and cons of the engine. And before we start, probably reminder to like and subscribe, because it motivates me a lot to keep making videos like these. And yeah, let's jump right into it. Alright, so starting off with the positive aspect of the Numeron cards, ZEXAL is super easy to make, only requires you one card, which is Numeron Network, sending Numeron Calling from your deck to the graveyard, which pretty much allows you to summon in between like 1 to 4 Numeron Gate monsters from your extra deck with different names, and then you can overlay ZEXAL on top of them. So if you only summon 3 Numeron Gates, ZEXAL will be summon number 4, and you play around Nibiru by doing that, and then pretty much you get to use the effect during your opponent's draw phase or standby phase to prevent them from using pretty much any card or effect until the rest of the turn. Of course, you could wait until they go into main phase, they summon at least a monster, so you play around Infinite Impermanence and Gamma this way, which I want to say probably the safest way to do it. But at the same time, you might lose to, I don't know, kaijus, weird stuff like that, inherent summons. If your opponent has a monster with at least 2000 attack or more, then he's not going to eat another round of ZEXAL next turn. So to be fair, that's probably something that's going to be more in your favor, because if you're putting your opponent under ZEXAL, it's really hard to just go normal summon a monster with like 21, or I guess Cyber Dragon would work, special Cyber Dragon, attack over ZEXAL, set a bunch of cards, play from there. But at the same time, Numeron Network is a really resilient card, because even if your ZEXAL dies, you still have Numeron Network on the field, so next turn you can send another Calling and do the exact same thing again. So yeah, ZEXAL is basically just another, I guess, a better VFD at this point. Sits in the gate, it prevents your opponent from using monstrous spells and traps, which once again can help you out to protect your trap strategy, but also it allows you to kind of have access to a really cool toolbox. So if your deck is like a slow based deck and you're playing against like an opponent that just has a bunch of monsters on the field, Numeron Network is straight up an OTK here, because the Numeron Gate monsters actually have relevant effects where they double the attack of all the Numeron Gates every time they battle, after they battle. So you go from 1k to 2k to 4k to 8k, and that's actually quite a lot of damage that's stacking up. It's like, I don't know, 15k or something like that, which is, you know, pretty good. I'm gonna take that. If your opponent has a bunch of 0 attack monsters on the field, obviously that's not gonna happen, but you only need 8k to OTK, and even if you can't OTK, on main phase 2 you still have one summon left, so you can go into another ZEXAL, you know, a Mega Clops, Sanya to banish every monster on the field. You can go into Appaloosa for 4, Scaldeat to fix your hand in case you break, and once again, you are completely free to still set some cards. You're only restricted to summons, and if you're playing like Guru or Altergeist or Eldritch, it's really not that bad anyways. Finally, I guess I want to say probably one of the most relevant final advantages that I could figure out for this Numeron package is the fact that you actually play more good cards than bad cards. So you're playing 3 Numeron Network, 3 Numeron Wall, which is also kind of like a Swift Scarecrow in a way, or Battle Fader, and also plays through Ash because, well, plays around Ash, since you can't even Ash it in the first place, since it activates from the deck to the field directly, and Numeron Network sends Numeron Calling from deck to grave for cost. So since sending a card from deck to the graveyard isn't part of the effect, it also cannot get Ashed. You can get Ogred, but that's a different story. And then you can play, you know, Terraforming, Metaverse Set Rotation, you know, all of these cards, which are the good 1-card starters, and then the bricks, which is, I guess, only Numeron Calling, is 1 to 2 copies. It depends on what you want, really, but 1 to 2 is probably the safest, unless you're playing like pure OTK, which is, I guess, nice. It can go first and make ZEXAL, and you could go second to OTK. Plays a lot of kaijus, Pancratop, stuff like that. Anyways, for the cons, I pretty much covered one of them literally 10 seconds ago, and is the fact that Numeron Calling is a brick, unfortunately. You know, makes it a bit less, you know, appealing to side deck the entire engine. You might just be like, oh, I'm just gonna main deck everything, but at this point, you're main decking a bunch of cards. You're playing probably 3 Numeron Network and 3 Wall for maybe like 1 to 2 Calling, so it's a huge ratio of good cards to bad cards, which is good and bad at the same time, because the good cards are very good, but at the same time, they're only good if you still have a bunch of bad cards in your deck. So if you're out of Numeron Callings, then your good cards are no longer good cards. Are you kind of seeing what I'm like talking about? Basically, there's a paradox with Numeron Calling where if you want your deck to be as consistent as possible, you only want to play 1. However, if you want your deck to be more resilient and have like better longevity, is that even probably whatever, I don't even know. If you want your deck to be better in the long term, you're gonna have to play maybe 2 Numeron Callings, which is going to increase your odds of dead drawing, which obviously sucks. You know, it's the worst feeling ever is drawing like 1 or 2 Numeron Callings with no Numeron Walls. And once again, even if you have Numeron Network. If you don't have Culling and you get Ogred, you kind of lose. And if you have Numeron Network and Numeron Culling, the safest thing I want to say is go activate Numeron Network, not even use Numeron Network, and then use Numeron Culling, so this way you play through literally every hand shop. Well, not really every hand shop, because once again, if you are not careful and your ZEXAL gets hit by Infinite or Gamma, which you can definitely play around to be fair, well, you can actually lose quite a lot, but you are going to, like I said, end on still a Numeron Network on your field. Well, however, though, if you only play one Culling, that's just not going to matter too much, and the disadvantage of not being able to summon until the end of the turn, depending on what deck you are playing, might make you kind of draw awkward hands sometimes, which kind of can suck, but at the same time, it definitely is up to how you deck build. I want to say you have to dedicate way too many cards also to playing this package, because it's a bunch of Numeron Gates in your extra deck, it's a bunch of toolboxy cards like Mega Club, ZEXAL, Appaloosa, Scarlet if you really want to play them, Sanya. If you want to play a second Numeron Culling, you're gonna have to play even more copies of the Numeron Gates, probably like 7 in total, or 6 at least. 7 is if you want to have like the OTK, because the OTK would require you to summon 4 Numeron Gates, but that's just a bunch of cards in your extra deck, so that makes it so you conflict with Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Disparity when the card is going to become a thing. The decks that usually can play the Numeron package are decks that would like to not really care about banishing cards from the extra deck with Pot of Extravagance, so making your deck kind of rely on more stuff, relying on luck maybe, might not be the way to do it. Literally all they can do, all they have to do is go set 5 pass, and since you can only use ZEXAL during your opponent's turn and not your own turn, well, you're kind of under pressure yourself, because you have a monster on your field which is preventing you from using the network on the field to generate even more monsters, so you really have to rely on your other engine cards to do the job for you. But if you just break on a bunch of Numeron cards and not enough engine cards, or just like utility cards and Numeron cards, well, your engine technically isn't doing anything, and all they need is they can just jump over your ZEXAL once it does nothing, and if you try to use Numeron Network again to send your second Culling, if you get like MST or Cyclone or whatever, it's pretty much almost the game over for you. You have just, what, like exactly like I said, a bunch of useless Numeron cards left in your deck, and if you top deck them, they're actual Garnets but without stats, so even worse than Garnets. Mega Clubs, by the way, really isn't that good anymore, because people are playing Infinite, Drop, Dark Ruler, 3 Tactical Talents, Virtual World Gate Chooch, and even worse, they're playing Zodiac Drancia and Negalogia Zeus. Yeah, sure, your monster is unaffected by monsters except like Xyz, but Xyz monsters are pretty good right now. Even Drytron can out it in 2 seconds, Virtual World can out it in literally 2 seconds, Phantom Knights can out it in 2 seconds. You know where this is going. Even Eldritch, I want to say, really doesn't care at all, because Conquistador can still destroy it. It's not unaffected by card effects, only by monster effects that aren't Xyz. You really have to remember that, because some people would be like, okay, Mega Clubs turn 1 pass, okay, you can't deal with my Mega Clubs at all, it's basically Ultimate Falcon 2.0, but no, it really isn't, so definitely gotta watch out for that. And finally, I want to say that ZEXAL sadly loses to the exact same cards that VFD loses to, so if people are preparing their deck to beat VFD, they're going to beat ZEXAL at the same time. So Herald of Orange Light and Drytron, regardless of if you control a card trying to play around Infinite or Gamma, it doesn't matter, because they can always Herald of Orange Light, pitch a fairy, and boom, your ZEXAL gets negated and destroyed. You can't even do something crafty like compose back your own ZEXAL, because VFD, you could actually destroy your own VFD if it was being targeted by Infinite Impermanence, but you know, for something like that, unfortunately, there is really no strategy. So VFD in Virtual World, I want to say, is probably like a better backup, and on top of that, Virtual World is kind of like a more combo-esque strategy, so if they skip their opponent's turn, they kind of capitalize off of the fact that their opponent wasn't able to do as much, because at least they actually pop off next turn, they have a stacked graveyard, they have like multiple searches, monster reborns, etc, so you're dealing with way much against like Virtual World than against something like ZEXAL if they don't do anything proactive. So in conclusion, it was unfortunately easier for me to figure out negative aspects of the Numeron package, and I guess ZEXAL, than the positive aspects, so because of that, I want to say that it's a little too niche for the like current environment, the decks that can use them that already are very niche. I mean, Guru isn't really a standard deck whatsoever. Eldritch, yeah, sure, it is a standard deck, but not necessarily with the Numeron cards. Same thing with like Altergeist. I mean, I want to say Altergeist with Numeron cards really wouldn't make sense. Even conflicts with like Multi-Faker and stuff. Sure, nice skipping your opponent's like turn and ability to play for a turn is cool, but it definitely comes with cons that you have to be fully aware of when you deck build. I cannot stress that enough. That definitely doesn't mean that ZEXAL sucks, and that definitely doesn't mean that the Numeron package will never be good again. I want to say as soon as VFD gets banned, ZEXAL will be the first, like the next replacement for VFD instantly. Like literally, that's a good investment to make, because sure, people are sleeping on it right now, but if anything, that's gonna make it even better when it's going to catch people off guard in the future. So if anything, what you should take from this video is this engine has a lot of potential to be even better in the future, but don't play it right now. I wouldn't really recommend it. I think it is mathematically incorrect, and people are definitely ready for ZEXAL. So those are just my 2 cents on the Numeron package. If you guys have any comments or feedback or opinions or whatever, definitely let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Suggest me any topic you want, and till then, it is Yasin signing out. Peace.